Good morning to you. Trust you are well wherever you're watching from. I'm going to be getting back to the online sessions very shortly. I'll let you know when I get myself together after the holiday season. I've got a lot to share, a lot of new things, and I'm also preparing for meetings up ahead, so I will let you know. If you're waiting for the online sessions to start, quite a few people have been messaging me saying, when are we getting going again? Don't worry, I haven't forgotten. So this morning I'm going to be speaking to you about finding rest in the middle of whatever you're going through, because maybe you've seen my posts about living from rest, that place of rest in God, and only taking on what God gives you. That's a big key to finding rest. Don't be looking for more to do so you feel better about yourself. Be looking to impress God only. And we do that by saying, God, whatever it is you want me to do, I'll say, yes, Lord, to you, and no more than that. And then when we do what He's given us to do, we do it well. But I want to say to you that the most important thing is finding Jesus. This is how we find rest. We find God in the middle of our situation. We find Him. And I really believe that we taught a lot of things about living by faith and declaring the word and all of these things, and this is about what we can do. But we can't do these things properly unless we find Him first. So it's about finding Him. He is our place of rest. So I'm going to read you a couple of scriptures. Isaiah 40:31 is the first one. It says, those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. Waiting on God is not passive. It's your hope is in God, expectation. And it's not so much hope about and waiting for Him to do things. It's about waiting on Him to meet with you, to reveal Himself to you, reveal His heart to you. And this is where we find the place of rest. It's not a performance thing with God. It's a relationship that He wants with us. And this is how we find rest. Firstly, whatever you're going through, you find Him in the middle of your battle. You find Him in the middle of your need for breakthrough, because He is your breakthrough. That's where your breakthrough comes. It says, they shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. So that mounting up with wings like eagles takes us above the battle, above our needs, above our storm, and we see Him. And when we see Him, our perspective changes. It's not just seeing what He sees, it's seeing Him. That's a big key there. The other one is Matthew 28, verse 30, and verse 29 and 30. Actually, verse 28. It's Matthew 11, sorry. Matthew 11, 28 to 30. And this is Jesus speaking. Come to me. What an invitation. All you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. You know, what an invitation when you're in the heat of a battle. When you feel that you can't hear from God anymore because the devil wants to rob you of your access, the understanding you have, that you have access to the voice of God, that He wants to speak to you, He wants to direct you, He wants to give you peace, because that comes when you hear the voice of God. Peace comes. And so Jesus says, if you are laboring, if you're struggling, heavy toil, that's what labor means, hard work that makes you sweat, that's laboring. And heavy laden, you laden down with the burdens of life. And that I find in my own life, when I feel heavy and discouraged, it's because I've taken my eyes off Him. And the battle is there, but we need to get our eyes on Him and find Him in the middle of the battle. And then He can give us rest. He's there all the time saying, come to me, I can give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So what an invitation, what a promise. His yoke is, what has He given you to do? Not so much to do. It's, who has He called you to be? He's calling you into a relationship with Him. That's His yoke. He wants you entwined with Him. He wants to be holding you by the hand. He wants your arm to be in His arm as you do this journey together. That's His yoke. His yoke is not a whole lot of things that He wants you to do. So I started thinking about Esther a while ago. As I'm thinking about this, I made this resolution at the beginning of the year to live out of rest in God, that my hope comes from Him alone. I'm going to put my hope in Him. I'm expecting to encounter Him. I want to get to know Him better. I want to hear His voice more clearly. And so, and it's all about relationship. And when I did that, I began to think about Esther and how Esther, given this amazing opportunity to intervene on behalf of a nation, but she was a young girl, and here she had to be presented to the king and be married to the king, who was firstly not a Jewish person. So it went against everything she would have been taught as she was growing up. But she was given this opportunity to experience being in a place where God would use her to intervene on behalf of a nation. And so what I thought was, Esther did not start out in rest. When I say rest, a place of, I know what I'm doing, I know God's got me, I know everything's going to be okay. She didn't start out in rest because Mordecai had to say to her, if you don't do this, God will use somebody else. Remember, go and read it. And then he says, it's in Esther 4, but who knows whether you've been called to the kingdom for such a time as this? And it was that opportunity that she chose to say yes to God, and yes to stepping into one of the greatest moments in history. And so many times in the middle of a battle, you are not at rest until a word comes from God, a promise out of the scriptures. Somebody contacts you with an encouragement from God. They had a dream about you, or they had a word for you. And in your discouragement, in your hopeless situation, you can say, yes, Lord, I'm believing that. And that's when things change. And so for Esther, things changed when she heard what Mordecai said to her. And she obviously in her heart, she said, yes, I'm going to do this. And she did. And it was from that moment onwards that she began to operate out of rest. Because what happened was, stepping into her invitation, I'll call it an invitation, she began to see favor. She began to see amazing favor. And then from that place, she began to receive wisdom, because it was the wisdom that God gave her. God gave her a strategy to deal with the enemy, Haman. He gave her a strategy, showed her exactly what to do. So the enemy was dealt with. And so many times you feel, I'm not starting out in rest. I can't find rest. But when you receive that invitation from God, when you get that encouragement from God, whether it's His word or through somebody else, you say, yes, Lord, I believe that. Then you've stepped into rest. And from that place of rest, you begin to see where the favor is. You begin to get the strategies from God. But if you never say, yes, Lord, if you never take hold of the promises that come in your time of need, then you'll never step into that place of saying, God, you've given me something now. Now I believe the promise, and now I feel as if I'm above the storm and I can see your strategy about how to deal with it and how you are dealing with it. So my encouragement to you today is stay in the place of rest. Stay in the place of rest, because that's where you see the favor leading you where you need to go. You see the favor of God in your life. He shows you how to pray, and He gives you wisdom from that place of favor. So my scriptures again were Isaiah 40 verse 31 and Matthew 11, 28 to 30. So Jesus is saying to you today, come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. His yoke is easy and His burden is light. So be encouraged with that today. God has a purpose for you. There's favor in the midst of your battle. There's His perspective in the midst of the battle. But the most important thing is to find Him. Be above all the breakthrough, above all the blessings we talk about, above all the things we're trusting Him for. To find Him is where we find our rest. So be encouraged with that today.